So now we look to end the World Cup the same way we started it. India played Australia in their first game, Australia played India in their first game. And these two teams have made it to the final. It's almost as if it's gone full circle. But before we preview the final, I've got Zahid with me to just recap what has been two slightly contrasting semi-finals. On one hand, you had a high scoring, I wouldn't call it thriller, but lots of runs, lots of great shots, and an amazing bowling performance. So you had extremes. And on the other, you had a classic 1990s low scoring thriller, bringing back memories of 1999. And it was quite the paradox to the first one. So, Zahid, starting with the first semi, India against New Zealand, a predictable result, you'd say?
Yeah, very predictable. I think the only thing unpredictable about that was how close, if you can call it, New Zealand actually got. I think at the halfway stage, most of us had them folding for under 250, if not even. And at 40 for two, you probably thought that that's what's going to happen. So look, I think from that point of view, once India won the toss by at first, the first couple of overs when you saw what Rohit Sharma is doing, the writing was on the wall. At the halfway stage, I mean, we knew India would win, but I actually thought maybe they were like 10, 15 runs short because at one point they were threatening to hit more than 400. But certain milestones got in the way.
Certain milestones definitely got in the way. Now, this was another batter, we'd call it stat padding, but I think you can understand. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at in the grand scheme of things, I mean, they had enough anyway. I mean, 350 would have been enough eventually, to be honest, as well.
Interesting though. Actually, when I watched that game and then I later also watched the highlights, you know, it wasn't the most convincing India performance, right? Because for a long time, India had not been challenged, right? The last time they were challenged was in their first game, 2 for 3, right?
Yeah.
Since then, barring one or two slight hiccups, it's been pretty smooth sailing. So it was interesting to see India. I wouldn't say they were fully challenged because when you've got 390 plus on the board,
Yeah.
you're not really being
Yeah.
challenged. But you felt slightly, you know, a few catches went down, a bit of sloppiness in the
Yeah.
field. Suddenly you started seeing a bit of, I wouldn't say panic, but you
Yeah.
started seeing the semblance of a team that has now reached the summit and they're a world beating team, but they're new to that level, right? So it's almost as if they weren't quite used to it and they forgot how it felt to be under the pump.
Yeah. I think I agree, and I think especially the bowling. I think this was the first time where you felt that their bowling had, I wouldn't say lost control, but was losing control.
Siraj. Yeah.
Exactly right. So, I mean, Bumrah also bowled five wides, and so Shami, he took 7 wickets. He dropped a catch of Williamson, I think it was. Look, all in all, so I think from that point of view, and we'll discuss this, I guess, in our final previews, is how sort of has given the opposition a hope that this Indian bowling can, has some chinks in it. Because before this we thought that bowling teams out for 50, 85, 120, like there was nothing, there's
No, no,
literally no respite. But this has shown that you can score 300 plus against them, so that will definitely give some encouragement to Australia. But look, at the end of the day, if your batters fire heavily and score almost 400, then you can afford to have a slightly off day with the ball.
you can.
But
You can. But see, this is the point I was making actually, and I think we disagree on this. So let me just say, I think Rohit Sharma is a phenomenal captain. I thought, and what makes him a great captain is his batting approach. It's almost selfless. He could
yeah,
get out in the second over, but he knows it helps his team tremendously if he
yeah,
scores a quick fire 50 of
yeah,
30 balls, right? Because he knows he can do it.
yeah,
Others can't, right? He has the ability. That's selfless batting for the team.
yeah.
His captaincy, fielding placements, bowling changes to a large extent. But I have one criticism. And the one criticism, and I'm sorry, but it's a criticism, is he did the same thing against Pakistan, where he kept Bumrah and he let that Babar Azam and Rizwan partnership blossom a little. Uh, the same thing here against New Zealand, where I felt when Glenn Phillips came in, Glenn Phillips plays pace far better than spin. It's almost like, probably not to the same extreme as Iftikhar, but like still, it's similar, right? And I felt, why not bring Kuldeep on? And then you saw what happened when Kuldeep came on. That could have happened a few overs sooner. Now, I get why he did it. He was waiting for the extra fielder outside the circle at over number 40. But when you're defending 390 plus, the one fielder outside the circle isn't going to make much of a difference. You have the luxury of defending such a big total. Now, I know in this case it didn't matter. But all my only point is, in another situation against a better team like Australia, marginal decisions like these might matter more. So I felt he could have trusted Kuldeep to go in with an extra field inside the circle, but knowing Glenn Phillips' weakness. That was just my thing, because he let Glenn Phillips get settled in. On another day, if it were Maxwell, maybe could have taken the game away.
Look, I slightly disagree with that, but I just felt like, and because it worked out so well, Kuldeep gave 6 runs and took a wicket in those overs that he came back. And maybe if they were chasing 320 or defending 300 or 320, then he may have gone a different way. He might have bought
Maybe.
Kuldeep on sooner.
Fair.
Because he has the luxury of the runs, he thought, this he can kind of plan and strategize. And I think it was Bumrah who ended up getting Glenn Phillips out anyway, right? So caught at the boundary slightly later on, but look, it worked out well for them. But anyways, and yeah, in terms of field placing, I mean, the fact that Jadeja took 3 crucial catches at the end, I mean, the way
Yeah, oh, brilliant.
so not just placing fielders in the right position, but having the
The
personnel
right.
in
Yeah, yeah,
exactly
absolutely. Absolutely.
something certain teams can only dream of. If they get the
I mean,
right, if they
yeah,
get a
yeah.
fielder in the right place, it's a big achievement. Let alone the right personnel.
Oh my God.
But look, I mean, well done to India. Deserving finalists, absolutely. Um, and then the second semi-final, very very disappointing start from South Africa. The C word started coming in within the first 2 overs, and the way they were batting, it was, I don't know. Look, I mean, look, I'm sorry, I'm going to be Pakistan into this, but look, if you wanted to concede 400 runs, New Zealand and South Africa, if you wanted to bat like that, might as well have just let Pakistan through. We would have done the same thing.
Well, yeah, but we wouldn't have put on a fight like either of the two did. Maybe South
Yeah.
Africa, maybe what South Africa did because our bowlers did it, but I'm definitely against India. When India scored 390, there is no chance. I can just imagine Babar Azam's eyes coming out like a rabbit in front of headlights.
Well,
Thinking
we
of,
saw that in the Asia Cup, right? We got
we
folded for
saw it.
120. Yeah.
That was a low total. I think that was a
Yeah.
low total. So that one over 2 days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's not say that. But yes, maybe the South Africa game, maybe. But look, you know, I was debating in my head, is this choking? Because like, how do you define choking, right? On one, like, choking is most apparent when South Africa are the favorite and they bottle it, right? Think of the T20 World Cup in 2009 against us. Or think of all the times when they've been favorites against New Zealand
Yeah.
in the 11 World Cup quarterfinal, and then I don't know what happened,
Yeah.
right? That is for me the epitome of choking. Today
Yeah.
they weren't favorites, right? So I think this one is a bit different, but yet equally it is reminiscent of all the times where they've done things out of normal thinking. I remember
Yeah.
Lance Klusner, one run of what, 4 balls, and they bottled it with
Yeah.
stupidity. This falls in that second camp, because when you look at those 4 wickets, I mean, they
Yeah.
weren't brilliant. Yes, well bowled Australia, but I mean, very, like, some of them were just
Yeah.
complete lack of application. And why Bavuma thinks he's so good to play when he's not 100% fit, when he averaged less than 20 when he is fit, is beyond me. You've got Makran
Yeah.
as such a good vice captain. I mean, Hendricks, who, poor guy.
I guess the desperation of leading his side to in a semi-final of the World Cup. Yeah, and look, yeah, you say that they're probably the wickets that they lost, but even when Australia were chasing, or Australia were far ahead, and South Africa bought the game back, and you can argue at one point maybe Australia were the ones that were choking, but South Africa, they dropped quite a few chances. They dropped a couple of catches. Klaasen dropped one a slip. So look, they have to, at the end of the day, they only
Same
have
thing
themselves
happened
to
in
blame.
2015, if you remember, against New
Yeah.
Zealand. A couple of drops, couple of run out misses. I don't know what it is. It's almost now as if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like the whole India Pakistan or Pakistan Sri Lanka, oh, all these different things. When you
Yeah.
make it such a big boogie in your head, that's what it turns out to be, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the problem. But anyways, look, I thought it was a great game, though. I thought Australia, were coasting,
Yeah.
absolutely ghosting. But see, this is why I love low scoring thrillers, and you see more of this with low scoring thrillers because teams aren't used to it. And the reason is when you have a big total, there is almost clarity of mind.
Yeah.
You know there's one way to play, but suddenly when you're 210, you're like, oh, should we be positive? Should we try to finish the game off and it'll minimize the chance of anything happening? The longer it drags, the more chance of something happening. Or do we not take the risk? Because if we take the risk, maybe we could inadvertently make
Yeah.
something happen for the opposition and give them an opening when there isn't one. Should we just milk? And it's that confusion which
Yeah.
causes that slight disarray,
And
right?
what I actually liked about this, yeah, what I liked about this performance in the end was it wasn't as if Australia were losing wickets consistently from the beginning. It wasn't like they were 20 for 2. They were like 60 for none in 7 overs or something, right? When Warner was smashing it all over the park. At that point, you thought it was game over. So to bring it back
Game
from
over,
there, I
yeah.
think is a big achievement. It's not like, they kept taking wickets every 10, 15, 20 runs and then, kind of it ended up being 210 for 7 or whatever. It was actually 60 for nothing, then 120 for 1 or 2, and then 130 for 4. So it was kind of, they brought it back really well. But at the end, I guess from South Africa's point of view, they can go back with their heads held high because they lost a game where they showed some fight rather than the other way around where they were in a winning position and they kind of lost it.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
maybe you can't call this an absolute joke in the end. But
Sure, sure. I mean, but the one person who I think did choke was Marco Janssen. I
yeah,
he, I mean, he's in our team of the tournament. A lot of teams of the tournament, but really he had an absolute shocker. It's just a shame there aren't many pace bowling all rounders that would take that spot. But I thought he just I brain fade when he was bowling. So yeah, that was that. But look, there we have it. It's India against Australia. It is probably one of the most compelling rivalries in cricket, right? Let's be honest.
yeah,
Australia bring out the best in India. India, I wouldn't say bring out the best in Australia because India tend to have a favorable record, but it is a repeat of the '03 final, and it's going to be, I hope, an absolute humdinger. But stay tuned for the preview. It'll be out shortly. Thank you.
thank you.